I'm going to do something that you shouldn't do, which is take off my mask here. But we have 6 feet. So when you come up, Gregory, you can take off your mask, and I'll put mine back on. One comes off, one goes on. Otherwise, it would be too muffled. Just before we begin the service, if you happen to have a cell phone, it's a wonderful moment to mute it. For those who I've not met or those who are joining us via the Feldman YouTube channel, I'm Rabbi Steve Kay, and I'm honored to stand here as we lay Ray to his eternal rest. Much like all of our lives, we come out here and we think we're going to be cold, and the sun is out, and it's just a beautiful day to honor this soul. From the book of Isaiah, Kol makra v'makra, Kol basur chatzitz v'chol hastem, Kitzitz aseh yavesh hatzur mavaltzitz, Ki ruach Adonai nafsha bo eichin hatzir am yavesh hatzur maval. Devar Elokeinu le'olam. A voice says, cry out, and I say, what shall I cry? All flesh is grass. All its beauty is like the flower of the field. The grass withers, the flower fades when the wind of the Lord blows upon it. Surely people are grass, the grass withers, the flower fades, but the word of our God shall endure forever. Linda, I never thought, or you probably never thought that when you and Ray moved out here, you would be home. You know, you come out after medical school residency, you get married, and you say, oh, Denver's a good place to be, and here you are. And I think those of us, and I often say this about reading the 121st Psalm, first in Hebrew and then in English, that the blessing of living in Colorado in a day like today, because we can look beyond our shoulders, we can see the mountains and the hills. And many of us are very spiritual, not necessarily religious. We find awe in moments and sacred moments in people's lives and looking out at the mountains. And the psalmists were not talking about the hills of Colorado at the time, but I think as we look at these hills, and as I often say, you drive across Hamden when you hit I-25 and you look out on any day and you can see all the way up to Estes Park and see all the way down to Colorado Springs. If we don't stand in awe, we lose a sense of who we are and the sense of God's creation. And we're also connected with one another. We're connected today by, a YouTube channel. We're connected by people here. And we know so many other people would have joined us that if we were in a sanctuary or an assembly place, hundreds of people would have come together to honor Ray and the richness and fullness of his life. And so we have to learn to be flexible because that's how we live our lives. So the psalmist said in the 121st Psalm, Esai enai elachari me'an yavo esri, esri me'im Adonai osa shamayim va'aretz, ayitain lamut reglecha anum shemercha. Hine lo yanum v'lishan shomer Yisrael, anay shmercha nitzchad nimcha, yomem hashemesh lo yakek v'aruch b'layla, v'ayim shmor nafshat atzecha, bo'acha me'tav yod olam. I lift up mine eyes to the hills. I lift up my eyes to the mountains, and where does my help come? My help comes from God, who has created the beauty of the world all around of us. God does not let your foot be moved. God who keeps you will not slumber. Behold, God who keeps us will neither slumber nor sleep. God is your keeper. God is your shade on your right hand. The sun shall not smite you by day, nor the moon by night. God will keep you from all evil. God will keep your going out and your coming in from this time forth and forevermore. Who shall ascend the mountain of the Lord, and who shall stand in God's holy place? This man that has clean hands and a pure heart, who has not taken God's name in vain, who has not sworn deceitfully. This man that walks uprightly and does justice and speaks truth in his heart, that has no slander upon his tongue, nor does evil to his fellow, nor takes up reproach against his neighbor. Happy is this man that greatly fears God's presence, that greatly delights in God's commandments. Unto the upright he shines as a light in darkness and in fullness, in compassion and in righteousness. The Hebrew poet Zelda wrote this poem, which says, L'chol ish yesh shem shenaton lo Elohim, v'nanu lo avi v'imo. Each person and every one of us has a name. We each have a name given by God and given by our father and given by our mother. We each have a name given by our stature and smile and given by our attire. We each have a name given by the hills and given by the valleys and given by the walls. We each have a name given by the stars and given by our friends. We each have a name given by our sins and given by our yearnings. We each have a name given by our enemies and given by our love. We each have a name given by the celebrations and given by our work. We each have a name given by the seasons and given by our blindness. We each have a name given by the sea. And now we have a name given by our death. This morning, I need not share with you his beloved family, Linda, 57 years of marriage, and Liz and Robert, Gregory and Raquel, grandchildren Hannah and Walker, and brother Phil, nieces and nephews Joanne and John, and Dan, that Ray was born on October 25th, 1935 in Cincinnati, Ohio. Ray was a son of Frank and Betty, who only wanted the best for their children, for Ray and Phil, who were the first generation children born here in the United States. Frank and Betty, like so many immigrants from Belarus and the Ukraine, came to our great nation set forth for a foundation of learning as a cornerstone of this family. Cincinnati, as some of you may know, is called the Queen City, as its population grew in the 18th century, with Americans pushing westward along the Ohio Valley. The Queen City was an amalgamation of immigrants and their children who have in future generations left an indelible mark on the building of the infrastructure of our great nation. I'm certain that all of us read this beautiful biographical obituary of Ray, that he obtained his B.S. from Ohio State University in 1958 and his Doctorate of Medicine from University of Cincinnati in 1962. He was an internist with a subspecialty in endocrinology, and in 2003 he moved from private practice to join the Barbara Davis Center for Diabetes as a clinical provider, where he worked for 14 years, retiring in 2017. He worked as a team physician for the Denver Broncos from 1977 to 1994. And Ray enjoyed traveling, bird watching, golfing, fly fishing, the Colorado Keys, and spending time with his family. These words that you wrote, though, provide us just with a snapshot of his life. However, I don't think they really convey the fullness of Ray's life. On the back of a headstone, I read recently the words about the M dash. It isn't the date on either end that counts from the day of birth to death, but how they use their dash. For that dash between the dates represents all the time they spent alive on earth. Now only those who loved him like you do, your beloved family, know what that little line is worth. Linda and Alyssa and Robert, Greg, Raquel, Hannah, Walker, and Phil, all of you have your own M dash about Ray's life. I'm certain that each of us had a relationship with Ray, with a doctor, our friend, our colleague, have our own M dash as well. And we'll tell those stories as we fill in our own M dash as we lay him to his eternal rest. As I shared with you when we met via Zoom, and what a whole new world this is for rabbis and funerals to do Zoom intake and not meet with the family in these kinds of ways, that I did not know Ray. But when Feldman's, the funeral home, called me, Ray's name rang a bell. Then as I learned more about him, I remember just a few weeks ago before Ray died, a lifetime childhood friend, Rabbi Ray Zwerin, mentioned that Ray, his friend, had been ill during our weekly Torah study. We offered a prayer for Ray's healing, and then Rabbi Z, as we call him, shared with us his M dash. Ray Zwerin said that Ray was the brother you loved without being forced to share anything. A brother you never had to share a bedroom with, or a brother who was not the source of a family disagreement, or someone you had to share the wrath of mom or dad, or the brother who you did not have to argue with in doing chores because you each had your own in your own homes. He was the brother who you could talk about interesting things with and share your life and your dreams, your passions, and your curiosities. Rabbi Zwerin provided us with wonderful stories about their lifetime of friendship, the pride they took in each of their own professional paths, both being from Cincinnati, and that they had frequent Mexican lunches. And Rabbi Zwerin tells us a wonderful story that Ray attempted to order in Spanish, and what he ordered was not necessarily what he received. So thank you, Rabbi Zwerin. We all know that fond and precious and sacred memories are created by a life well lived. I frame this eulogy, this hesped, with these memories as they represent the M dash that you shared with me about Ray. So Linda, when we spoke about your relationship, your 57 years of marriage, you have your own unique M dash. Your story, your journey, and a couple like so many other couples who married in the 1960s, you were children of immigrant generation. And you married for many different reasons than this generation marries. And as I listened to you, you shared your journey from meeting in 1959 when he was in medical school, and then he took a little time off and went to San Francisco before the two of you married, and then created a lifetime here in Denver. What was clear to me was that you loved him and you accepted him for who he was. You supported him and you were present for him in your own loving and kind way. You accepted and understood the endless on-calls and Ray's time away from the family. You always had a unique lens into who Ray was, and you took great pride in not that he was a doctor, but rather the kind of doctor he was. We all know that no one likes waiting for the doctor, either sitting in the waiting room or the exam room, getting frustrated at the endless wait. You shared with me at times that when you worked in his office, you had to make up stories as to why the doctor was running late. You knew the real reason. It was Ray being Ray, always taking the time to listen to his patients, to be present, to provide excellent care for his patients. He patiently listened to their stories, their symptoms and their sagas, which he always made time to hear. And this act of being lovingly present would often, or if not always, make him late for his appointments. Lend yours first line of defense when you often had to say, the doctor had an emergency. Sorry, he is running late. Knowing that the real emergency was provided. And Gregory, you had your own in-dash. You stated that Dad created a foundation of possibilities for you and your sister Alyssa. He was a child of the Queen City, a child of immigrants learning what it meant to be a good father, attending after-school activities, little leagues, dance events, or other things where he could watch you and Alyssa. Dad kind of found his own way to be present. He wasn't a man often of a lot of words. He didn't always share his emotions, but you always felt his support by being present. Ray and Alyssa were found. Ports of Call was this legendary Denver travel code that opened the world to so many in our community. A chartered plane would whisk off these adventurers to fun and exciting places. Sometimes Ports of Call had mystery trips, and nobody knew the destination. You got on the plane and you went, and maybe you were informed as you were on your way. These trips were great memories and moments in creating your family's M-dash. These trips were quality family time away from the busyness of Ray's medical practice. And Alyssa and Gregory, you shared with me, Dad would often look at medical conferences that were scheduled in Sweden, Normandy, Italy, and so many other wonderful places saying, this is one I should attend. It would be a great opportunity to share or learn some wisdom. And then he would always tack on some extra time to visit the local sites. And Gregory, you spoke of your trip to Japan with him. And of course, this created some sibling rivalry. So Alyssa, you and Dad took the 2006 trip the safari that you both recall. With the birth of Hannah and Walker, Ray entered into another stage of his life. He loved the two of you in many ways. He was able to be a parent of the two of you, giving love and support and wisdom. Grampy was there to teach you skills about life and living. And if anyone looks at Hannah when she's wearing tight shoes, you'll notice they're tied in a very unique way. Ray was her teacher, and there was only Ray's way of tying shoes. Dylan, I know the two of you just got engaged, but if and when you're blessed with children and you see that Hannah's teaching to tie shoes in a certain way, leave her alone. Let it be part of the precious memory that goes from generation to generation. And Walker, in the most loving way, you shared with me that Grampy guided you in a fatherly way over the years. He provided you with some important lessons about life and living. It was a sounding board for you that created a strong and everlasting bond. I know that when any of you eat ice cream, and today is a great ice cream day, it will bring a loving smile to your face, as this was one of Ray's favorite things to do. He would end his day with ice cream. He loved his ice cream. As a family, you are blessed to have Ray as an integral part of your life. We as a community were blessed to have him as a caring physician who touched so many lives. So before Gregory speaks, let me conclude my words with the words from Linda Ellis, who wrote a poem called The Dash. I read of a man who stood to speak at a funeral of a friend. He referred to the dates on the tombstone from the beginning to the end. He noted the first came the date of birth and spoke the following date with years. But he said what mattered most of all was the dash between the years. For that dash represents all the time they spent alive on earth, and only those who love them know what that little line is worth. For it matters not how much we own, the cars, the house, the cash. What matters is how we live and love and how we spend our dash. So think long about are things you'd like to change. If you never know how much time is left, that still can be rearranged. If we could slow down enough to consider what's true and real and always try to understand the way other people feel and be less quicker to anger and show appreciation more and the love the people in our lives like we never loved before. If we treat each other with respect and more often wear a smile, remembering this special dash might only last a little while. So when your eulogy is being read, with your lifetime's actions to rehash, would you be proud of the things they say about how you spent your dash? And I'm certain that all of us would be very proud, no matter how our dash was with Ray, who we lay to his eternal rest. Gregory?
Well, I just want to say thank you to you, Rabbi. Thank you for that beautiful talk and honoring of my father. Really happy to have you here and to help us remember some of the stories that as we sit here today. It's sometimes hard to remember it all because there's so many. I want to thank the staff of Mount Nebo. Thank you all for helping us out. You do good work. And also for the Feldman Mortuary, thank you so much for helping us out to create the space. I want to thank all of you, my family. It's hard to live far away from you sometimes, but I think of you often, and I'm so happy to be here with you. Also to all of you that are watching from far away or not so far, to help honor the life of my father, Ray Gutin. By some great fortune, my sister Alyssa and I were able to be next to my father when he passed just this last Thursday, just afternoon. It was a difficult moment, but it was a special, very special moment to watch the passage, a sacred moment to watch that, because it's part of life and death and that process that we all go through. The rabbi had asked me to write down what I was going to say today, because I guess he has some experience with people that don't write down what they're going to say, and they ramble on for a long time with lots of stories. And so I managed to condense mine down to about 20 pages. I hope you're comfortable. No, I'm just kidding, but of course we could all spend hours and days sharing stories and memories of my father. His long, adventurous life that he had, thank God. But in truth, my father was a fairly quiet man, as the rabbi was alluding to. He was a master at sitting back and listening and observing, just hanging out, really good at just hanging out, kind of holding space for everybody just to do whatever they need to do. Because of this, though, I often wondered what was going on inside of his mind, how he put his thoughts together, how he perceived the world around him. It's very mysterious in a lot of ways. But much less of a mystery was the nature of his very big heart. He carried a feeling of being pretty content with life in general. And he exuded an inviting sense of warmth and calmness wherever he went and whoever he was with. I did write it down, so I'm sticking with it. Now, if you did get my father talking, he would usually be sharing maybe a few stories, not too much, but he would definitely be making light of the situation. Maybe he didn't like to go too deep, but maybe that was one of his beautiful gifts. And he would always have a good joke to tell. And true, some of his jokes were certainly better than others. But we always laughed because just the way he even talked about things and joked about things was just part of who he was and made him such a special person. But it was his genuine warmth and playfulness and his gentle nature that made my father such an exceptional person. Not to mention his great love and his skill of doctoring. Always helping people feel at ease, and that things were going to be better. Things were going to get better, regardless of the circumstances, and all with a profound sense of humility and magic. Somebody reminded me. Who was that that said something?
Joe, my friend Joe.
Yeah, because I guess a friend of Alyssa's was saying that he went to see Dad once. No,
She went to see Dad.
She went to see him.
She was really sick, and he said medicine is 70% science and 30% magic.
Nice, yeah. 70% science and 30% magic. We didn't even know that he believed in magic, actually. We thought he was pretty much just like by the book, but there was something about him that was really very magical and mysterious and otherworldly in a way. So, as his son, it seems I've inherited his tendency toward quietness and observation, which sometimes is a little frustrating, trying to find the right words to say or to be part of a conversation. But I'm deeply grateful for that I've inherited that. Because it's given me a sense of calmness and groundedness that is sometimes difficult in these days. Though I must admit that, like my father's mysteriousness, I do wonder what's going on even in my own mind at times. But that's my problem. But what a gift to carry a little bit of my father inside myself, and a little bit of his parents, Frank and Betty, and of my father's grandparents before him. It is the life stories that we are living that have such deep roots. And it's these stories that make us who we are. And now, my father's life becomes a great feast for the generations to come, to sustain them. I encourage us all to weep generously for my father, which we've been doing a lot of. For we have to help him to get across that great river to the other side so he can become an ancestor and help us in our days yet to come. Papa, I stand here in honor of your beautiful journey of life, knowing that the echo you leave behind you will forever be inspiring the world to continue to make more life, more beauty, and more courage to continue on. I love you. We will not forget you, ever. Rest well. All blessings. Thank you.
Greg, we learned we're now in the book of Exodus, the book of Shemot. In a few weeks, we get to the first revealing of the 10 Commandments. And the fifth commandment is Kabed et avicha v'et imecha, to give honor to father and to mother. So when you and your sister jumping in, rightfully so, because I'm sure that's what happened throughout your life, you gave honor to your father by speaking those words from your heart. And you fulfilled one of those commandments. The other mitzvah that we all fulfill is that of we honor our dead by burying our dead with respect on a day like today. One of the things that I've learned is that love looks differently for everybody in different relationships. There's no way that the word love means the same thing. You can love a dish that you eat, you can love a friend, you can love a partner, a spouse, you can love a pet. Love means many different things. Rabbi Chaim Stern, who is known for writing many poetry and Reform liturgy, wrote these words called, "We love what death can touch." And let me share it with you before we continue to the burial part of our service. Rabbi Stern said, "It is a fearful thing to love what death can touch, a fearful thing to love, hope, dream to be, and to lose. A thing for fools this, and a holy thing to love. For your life has lived in me. Your laugh once lifted me. Your word was gift to me. To remember this brings painful joy. 'Tis a human thing, love, a holy thing to love, what death has touched." I ask you to join with me in the words from the 23rd Psalm. "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Mizmor la David Adonai Roi. The Lord is my shepherd." At this time, we'll lower the casket and continue with the words from our tradition. At the rising of the sun going down, remember Ray. At the blowing of the wind and chill of winter, we remember Ray. At the opening of the buds and rebirth of spring, we remember Ray. At the blueness of the skies and the warmth of summer, we remember Ray. At the beginning of the year and when it ends, we remember him. When we make an excuse to travel, we will remember him. When we know that our doctor is taking care of others, we will have patience, and we will remember him. We're lost and sick at heart, we will remember him. We have joy we crave to share, we remember Ray. We have decisions that are difficult to make, we remember Ray. As long as we live, he too will live, for he is now part of us, as we remember him. Tagibor Leolam Adonai Rab Lechoshia, Ekol Kechlein Bechesed, Ekol Barachamim Rabim Shomech Noflim Bril Pechus, Umatir Asurim, Kayen Emonto Lishanei Afar, Yichavach Agudot Mido Melach, Melach Menitum Kayen Matmiach Yeshua, Baruch Atah Adonai, L'chenu Kayen Olam. Eternal is your power, God, you're mighty to save. In loving kindness and multitude of mercy, you preserve us all. You uphold us the fallen and heal us the sick. You free us the captives and keep us faith with your children, death as in life. Who is like unto you, Almighty God, author of our life, author of our death, source of our salvation. Praise be thou, eternal God, who is implanted within us eternal life. Amikavoda Shalom, unto this place peace is found. And I know Tena Yikachi Yishim Barach, the Lord gives, the Lord takes. Praise be God's name. From dust we are created, and dust we return. If you'd like to fulfill the mitzvah of bearing our beloved one, we ask you to come forward. We won't be passing the shovel from hand to hand because we'll put it back into the pile and we'll wipe it down just for safety reasons. We live in a new world, so please come forward at this time if you'd like to fulfill that commitment. And try to remain as much social distancing as you can. Thank you.
We also have flowers if you want to put a flower.
Tradition tells us in this Genesis, Joseph fell into the pit. Jacob is father. Rips his clothes. forbid there's a death of a child, there's a death of a parent, death of a father. It's a wound to the heart that never heals. You get scar tissue. There is a medical, you get scar tissue on the person. And sweet memories or a scent or thinking about ice cream the first time, it comes back like that. And so the ritual of tearing through it reminds us that it goes on, and it's good in some ways. So we say the words Baruch, Dayan, praise you, God. We can continue to recover the people.
Sure, sports page. Sports pages today.
We offer two prayers now, the Yamalei Rachamim and the Mourner's Kaddish. Yamalei Rachamim, Shafim Yedomim, Ametzah, Tachat V'Echash B'Yom, V'Kedoshim, God, full of compassion, eternal spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest under the wings of your presence to our beloved Ray with under eternity. Master of mercy, may this soul be bound up in the bond of eternal life. May he find rest. May he find peace. May he find shalom. And let us all as a community say the words. The Mourner's Kaddish in front of you. Yit Gadal, Yit Gadash, Shemei Yavo. Shalom. May the source of peace and peace and comfort to all who mourn and to all who bereave. Always when we gather here at this cemetery and other cemeteries, we think that we're not alone as mourners. We travel with others the path of life and the path of death. We're also thankful for this not being a military cemetery, but we've had many men and women who've been buried here who served our armed forces. And that the generation of Ray's parents came here for great freedom and for the American way. At times we may have differences, but this is a great nation. And We take pride in being Americans, no matter our political orientations, but the greatness that this nation provides for education and opportunities for growth. So I close with, there are stars whose light reaches the earth only after they themselves have disintegrated and are no more. And there are men and women whose scintillating memory lights the world after they have passed away. These lights which shine in the darkest spirit and those which illumine for us the path. May Ray's memory always be a blessing. May we be inspired by him as a partner, as a father, grandfather, father-in-law, friend, and beloved physician in our community. Someone who came from the Twin City, who really is a royalty in many great ways. Zichrono Libracha, may your memory always be a blessing. And let us say, this concludes our service. Thank you for being with us. Thank you to those who zoomed with us as well.
It means a lot. You guys too.
You guys are